Eventually, you begin to feel overwhelmed. I think your brain goes into a bit of a shock and a freeze response, because you're trying to understand your new environment to navigate. But it was difficult. I mean, it's polar opposites. Just the weather alone was really difficult. I think a lot of people can relate with that. You're around different ethnicities, language, culture, opinions, political issues that constantly challenges you and changes you. So we're forced to eventually, in my opinion, develop empathy or try to understand each other. And moving, and as an immigrant moving, you're looking for that. Your brain is looking to have that input again. Around 20, I realized Newfoundland was too small. I needed to see the Canada that I was immigrating to, that we were coming to, not the smaller island. So I kind of needed to escape, I guess, at 20, and I applied to just be a flight attendant, and I applied to different cities, bigger cities, and I said, whoever accepts, I'm gonna go. And so I went to Calgary. I didn't have a citizenship yet, Canadian citizenship, but I started to work up north, which was really good. It pushed me to see the country.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Zen and Now. Today's episode is a really special one. I'm chatting with Carlin Wilters, who moved to Canada 17 years ago and has such an inspiring story to share. We talk about what it is like adjusting to a whole new culture, learning a new language, and how she's navigated the ups and downs of mental health along the way. It's honest, heartfelt, and full of those moments we can all relate to. So let's get into it.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's so nice to be able to speak to you, fellow South African immigrant, on this platform. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Now, thank you for also accepting my invitation to be on the podcast. I think it's refreshing, and it's nice to connect with people, globally, on a global stage.
Yeah, definitely.
So Carlin, just for our viewers who aren't aware of who you are, what's your journey, can you just give us a little bit of a 5-minute backstory of who you are and where you come from?
Yeah, I'm a South African Canadian immigrant. I came here about 17 years ago. I work in the early childhood field as a director. I come from close to Johannesburg on a farm. We moved to Newfoundland first, and then I came to this side of Canada, Alberta, about 3 years after that. Yeah.
That's amazing. And why Canada?
It was my dad's job at the time. And there's many reasons why we left South Africa, just safety at the time, opportunities, a lot of things I think people can relate to.
How did you feel as a new immigrant, or back then you probably were much younger? How did you feel just landing in Canada and coming from sunny South Africa to Calgary, or Newfoundland, sorry?
Yeah, I remember the night we landed and got out of the airport. It was snowing, it was really cold, it was gray, it was at night. But in that moment, you're a little bit excited. It's a new place. It's like you're on an adventure.
Mm-hmm.
But it was pretty cold. Eventually, you begin to feel overwhelmed. I think your brain goes into a bit of a shock and a freeze response, because you're trying to understand your new environment to navigate. But it was difficult. I mean, it's polar opposites. Just the weather alone was really difficult. I think a lot of people can relate with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we always get the question, oh, it's cold, because the perception of living in the north, it's really cold.
Yeah, but it's a different cold, than the cold we have back home. So
yeah.
I
know you mentioned to me you just landed with I know those Trimax. It was like our school jackets.
Yeah, it's more like a rain jacket.
Yeah.
That's the only thing we had. We came with our suitcases. And yeah, you step out and it's like, oh, this is a different world. This is entirely different temperature, never experienced anything like that. So you go into a shock. At least I did, but you're not aware of it at the time.
Yeah. For listeners who don't know, dry mac is more of like your rain jacket. It just has a lining inside, like a toweling lining, and the rain repellent fabric on the outside. It's very thin. It's mostly used in warmer climates for just wet weather, and I think is it a South African brand? I think so.
I'm not sure, but yeah, it's our warmest jacket that you really need to wear in the winter. So
Yeah, I
yeah.
think K-Way came out after that.
Hmm.
So the
Yeah, I
Islanders
have a
actually.
K-way.
Oh, you have a K-Way? Okay, that's your rubber stamp of being a South African. If you see South Africans walking anywhere in Canada, Toronto, or wherever, you know, okay, they come from South Africa with that. It's like a stamp of approval. Okay, I come from South Africa.
Yeah. Sorry, you were saying you landed in? Do you remember?
Yeah, so when we landed in Toronto as well, I think I just had one of those puffer Nike jackets. It did its job for a little bit. We also had K-Ways, but eventually we knew we had to actually purchase clothing that was made for Canadian weather. And I touch wood, it's been you invest in a good jacket and it takes you a long way.
Yeah, yeah, it does. But I mean, it takes a while to understand what layering is, what's
Oh
the
yeah.
right material. Um, that took a couple of years to figure that out, to
Uh-huh.
get used to the seasons.
Yeah. Similar layering wasn't a thing for me as well, where you had to learn how to okay what works for you, what doesn't. Because I know for fabric, kind of like different fabrics don't work for me. It makes me too hot, so I had to like learn to adjust. Find what works for me. And now I think I wear less in winter here than I did in South Africa actually.
Yeah, eventually your body climatized, but
Mm,
it takes a while to figure out. It's a completely new sensory experience for your body that
yeah.
you have to go through and understand. But so yeah, just takes time.
Uh-huh. And when you landed with family, I mean, obviously it's a whole new environment. You're unfamiliar. Your social structures, support structures aren't there. How did you guys manage to navigate those challenges and find a community?
Yeah, it was tricky. Luckily, in my situation, there was a few other South African immigrant families, that we met through my dad's work. And there were another immigrant family from England, but originally from Nigeria, just living behind us. So in a way that was helpful to understand a little bit of what are we going to go through? What is this like? But nobody really had the answers. They weren't there that much ahead of us. And so you're really just navigating it by yourself. But there was a little bit of that cultural support and interactions.
Uh-huh.
Um, but it was tricky. I think every person navigates in the end independently, and immigration is it becomes a very personal choice. We know a lot of people that went back, a lot of people that are still back and forth. So you can't really rely on other people's point of view, but you can learn from it. You
Yeah,
can you can ask and um, allow other people to give you a little bit of an idea. Um, but I mean, it takes time.
for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
we still fairly new, 5 years. I think you're further along than us.
Hmm.
But we have had also a lot of immigrants who've come over recently, share their challenges with us and how challenging it is without any family support or even just friends or familiarities that they're accustomed to. And it is very challenging. It's not for the faint-hearted. You gotta be invested in it 100%.
Hmm.
That's just my take on it. But we decided, okay, this is what we're gonna do, and we had a discussion between my wife and I. do we come in, do our landing and leave and then come back? And something within me said, no, you either jump in 100%, jump in full-heartedly, give ourselves the best chance or best opportunity to make this work. Because I felt if we just dipped our toe in, it wouldn't have been as if we were fully committed. That's just the way I felt it. And thankfully we did fully commit, because when we landed, 3 months later, COVID hit. So if we had left, it would have been a much more difficult terrain to track back to Canada. And I don't think I would have been in this position right now if we didn't commit to it 100%.
Yeah, you're so right, and I completely relate to that. Moving to Newfoundland was not the America that I saw on TV or that I imagined this is where we're going to. It was really difficult once I went to school, because we speak English in South Africa. I can understand it. I can navigate with it back in South Africa. And so I thought, coming to Newfoundland, people will understand me. I will understand them. I will adapt. But it was a completely different dialect. It's more like Irish, Newfoundlandese, which was traumatic in itself.
Why is that?
Because I felt like it was really hard to express how you feel, to communicate your needs. And then in the school, it was hard for me to do well, because I started grade 8 in South Africa and we moved in April. So when I got to Newfoundland, I was basically done with grade 8 and I had to start grade 9. And so I had to go to summer school and get a teacher to help me just with English. And it's really, in a way, you feel muted. You begin to turn inward. And I think as a teenager, in a way, I shut down because I can't express myself anymore. You get discouraged that way as well. It's frustrating because I speak English and now I can't use it in this environment. They just speak a different version of it. And so it made it a little bit more difficult. It wasn't until I got to Calgary where I actually felt a little bit more at ease and went into the process of immigrating, because there were more immigrants from similar backgrounds or more difficult backgrounds. And so I was able to relate a little bit more.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had to find that self of familiarity to start feeling yourself again.
Yeah. And I don't think at the time, the people in Newfoundland, the Canadians there, they weren't really prepared or given given what they needed to receive immigrants. So they didn't really know what to do with us. So you had to advocate for what you needed.
Because it's a set way of life. They set in stone. I think it's also a very small community, and it's not multicultural. I think not in a way, that diversity of, like you said, accepting people coming in, and I think they probably feel it is as a threat to their way of life, and which I totally understand. I guess we've got to adapt to assimilate to the new conditions that we see ourselves in. It's not the other way around, and I feel that's where most immigrants get it wrong. Where it's not the country that you come to that needs to adapt to you. You need to adapt to it.
Yeah. When in Rome, right? You have to kind of be humble and and looking back, I miss Newfoundland. It's a slower pace of life. Their priorities, in my opinion, are more based on their family. Like, I think if your whole family is there, you'll be happy because you don't need much else. But it just wasn't what I imagined where we're going. And so you have this expectation that you're trying to fight for and make happen.
And family support at that time, was everybody together, or everybody was just trying to navigate their own personal journeys at the time?
Yes and yes. We were just the four of us. My dad worked full time and my mom was at home, and then um, my sister and I came on like student visas because we were in high school, um, sorry, middle school,
Right.
and then my dad had the work visa. Um, so what it was hard to read how everybody was doing, because I was going through my own emotional uh, processing and stress that I didn't understand. And so I think you look to whoever's close to you, your family, to see if they have the answers, to see how they're doing. I'm a highly sensitive person.
Uh-huh.
I can feel people's emotions. I can sense the environment. And that has impacted me too. I'm the oldest. So I felt the responsibility to push through
Yeah.
and to also be there for my family, whatever they were feeling. I think my dad, my sister, and I adapted first, or started to adapt first, because we were kind of thrown into it. You know, you're in the school, my dad was at work. You're forced to put yourself out there to learn the language. It took my mom a little bit longer because she was mostly in the South African circles speaking
Okay.
Afrikaans.
Yes.
So everybody navigated it differently, and um, yeah, it years later, 5, 8 years later, um, you kind of see that each family member made their decision.
Uh-huh.
And so luckily, yeah, we're all here. But it's such a personal journey. I went back at 18. I was able to go back.
Okay.
And then and when I got there back in South Africa, I realized, after I've been 3 years in Canada, and how much my brain has changed, and
Changed.
it's a whole different world. I realized I went back to the same town, my same friends, my same circles, and I realized I don't belong here either anymore. Which was very lonely, because all of a sudden you're in between two worlds.
Yeah.
And that's for me when I realized I have to decide where I'm going to be, because if I'm in between on the fence, I'm never going to be able to move to a place where I feel I belong.
Uh-huh.
So that was helpful to me. And my sister took a bit longer. She did something else. She traveled a bit, and then she also went back a couple of years later. Um, yeah.
So for you, a sense of home is not a place. It's where you feel comfortable.
When I go to South Africa, there's memories that come back, and I feel at home there as well.
Yeah.
Like in the sense of,
Familiarities.
it's yeah.
Yeah.
And then when I come to Canada, I've been here now as long as the amount of time I've been here is, I came when I was 15, 16, so it's about the same time.
Same.
So, it's also home.
Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot what your question. Yeah, home is a sense. If I don't have inner peace, if I'm not content with where I am and grounded, then I don't feel home. It's not about the place I am, the country I'm in. It's, am I content? Do I have the peace that I worked for right now in this moment?
Right.
And you kind of, maybe some people can relate that moved countries. You become a citizen of the world.
Yes.
You realize your worldview is so big now that you can contribute in different places, and and that's actually such an honor and advantage for you. You can give back way more than what you were born into.
Yeah.
So
A friend of mine actually, and this resonates with me till today. He says, we are the 1% of the world that has the opportunity, or gets the opportunity to
Oh, wow.
live this life. And it resonates with me so deeply because it's the truth.
yeah,
Not a lot of people get the opportunity to experience another culture, another part of the world, and perspectives change. You see things differently, you feel things differently, your view on certain aspects of life elevate to a point where you become aware, empathic, kind. You understand the struggles people go through. You understand the journeys that emotions are felt, and it just makes you feel humble and grateful that you get the opportunity. And this, yes, it's nice. It all looks pretty, but there's a lot of people don't understand how much of energy goes into it, how much of mental fortitude you have to also overcome just to establish yourself, because basically you're starting from fresh. It's not like you've come from you've come to another country and you've already got your roots. Whereas both of us, I think our journeys were setting up roots, and that's the hardest thing to do, because the next generation would see the fruits of that labor. They won't really struggle or understand that struggle as much as you did, but it's because you've already, when you're laying down the foundation, it's always the most difficult. But if it's set fundamentally correct, you've set yourself up really nicely going forward.
Yeah, definitely. Like we said, like we discussed before, you can't stay on the fence. You have to decide, I'm gonna put my foot in this country, and I'm gonna decide I'm a settler, because you have to think about it like that. I'm a settler. I'm the first one here. I need to rebuild. I need to set up my tent. This is home now. That doesn't mean you forget where you're from, but you can bring it with you. But there's a lot of hope in realizing you can build something new. You can add to a place. It gave me purpose in many ways. Yeah.
Yeah. Going back to the language barrier that you experienced, a lot of people understand that Canadians speak English. However, there's so many dialects that also are a little bit more difficult to understand. Similar to South Africa, we have 11 different languages. Everybody speaks in a different dialect or tone. Even in English, coming from Lenasia, Johannesburg, we have our own way of speaking. A lot of people don't understand it, but we do. So similar to Canada. Coming from South Africa, how did you learn to adapt your vocabulary to start at least also communicating and participating within school?
With English, I would actually watch TV shows, and I would put the subtitles on, so that I learn both. We would do this as a family. That's how we struggled, because it was faster, the new Finese. But also, I think I would put on Friends. That was just like the American like show that I picked, to also see like their nonverbals, because I find in Newfoundland, the interpersonal way of speaking, interacting is more reserved. It's really hard to read people, without the language. It's really hard to read people. It was hard to connect with people. So I really just kind of used the TV shows that I saw back home, and I would try to understand it that way. But it took years. I think till I worked in education, I was able to read a little bit better. Like, I think in South African schools, like, we wear uniforms. There's a hierarchy.
Yeah.
And so you were taught to respect people. That's especially in a position higher than you, teaching you. That was stripped away. In Newfoundland, it was more casual. You would address teachers on their name. So that threw me off already, because it didn't feel okay for me to do that.
Yeah, just sign of respect.
Yeah, so that was hard to move away from. Honestly, like, until I got to Calgary, it probably began to feel more natural.
Right.
But I ended up just probably focusing on English learning, because I had to graduate. I was struggling, even though I was, doing okay. The English I wasn't able to graduate if I didn't do English. And so most of my high school there, I had a specific teacher that helped me one-on-one with English alone. So I focused on that more so than a whole lot of friendships because I needed to graduate. Um, but what you really miss, because again, Newfoundland wasn't that multicultural as like Toronto or Calgary. You In South Africa, there's always like some sort of humor. People are vibrant. There's always some sort of vibe going on. You understand each other through maybe a joke or, just a different vibe. And I really missed that. I really struggled not having that. I was in a boarding school and I played a lot of sports, and
Okay.
my brain was looking for that. And again, it went into like a complete shock, and I was lost for most of high school because of that. Um, but eventually I joined some sports, trying to understand, because that's the only way my brain knew how, was trying to understand how can I
Yeah.
learn from others, communicate, build some sort of connection. It really took at least 5 years to get to a point where I feel, okay, this is how I can navigate and be in this English society.
Right. Similar to, I think, my experience as well. High school was very challenging in terms of trying to fit in, trying to be seen, or just trying to exist. And sports was my outlet. It
Yeah.
it really helped me stay grounded, stay balanced. Because I think if I didn't have sports, it would have been very challenging for me to navigate that time of my life. Because I went through a lot of bullying in school, a lot of body shaming, name calling, those kind of things, and I really struggled. I didn't really enjoy high school very much, and I was thankful that I had sports as an outlet to express myself and build a little bit more self-confidence, so that I could actually just navigate high school to that extent. And then thankfully, when high school ended, I think my life started again. So it's just, I think, a similar transition period for both of us, where we found solace in sports. We found some form of community and some form of way to retain our self-confidence.
Yeah, I definitely can relate to that. I If it wasn't for subjects like the sport, the physical education, and arts, I wouldn't have had an outlet to express myself in Newfoundland. And because I valued it so much, it actually boosted my overall grade to graduate. So it was a
Right.
great outlet. Luckily, I found that I didn't have the sport team that I was used to in South Africa, but I was able to navigate the art class and was able to do well. That's a beautiful thing about immigration, is you are kind of pushed to problem solve eventually, or
Yeah.
to build your interest so that you can survive and adapt in that new environment.
Yeah. Resilience is the word I always use to describe South Africans.
Yes,
Always.
definitely. It's a constant fight. Yeah.
Given that, we've gone through so much in our history, growing up in certain eras or decades, you had to find ways to really challenge yourself, and you find a way. We always find a way to push through, not just push through, but also find solutions to those problems quickly than most other communities. I think we've noticed around while living in this part of the world. We get there a little bit more quicker than most, and it's not to brag about anything. It's just our circumstances forced us to down that road. Okay, given that we weren't brought up in the apartheid era, I was only like 4 or 5 years old when that. No, actually 94. I was 9 years old when that ended, but I was fairly young. I was just going through school, and by then everything already dissipated, all fighting and everything. But I think my parents were probably the ones and my grandparents that struggled through that period, and we, like I said, mentioned earlier, they set down roots for us to be able to go to school, attend university, and build a life.
Yeah.
And I feel now I understand what the first the first patronage of our family tree, what they went through, how it was so difficult for them. But it's such a beautiful journey that you find your feet quickly. You find yourself. You are able to understand how much you are you are capable of. Because I think if you're comfortable in a space, you don't really push yourself to an extent. You don't really get that opportunity to find that barrier that you are capable of. And I feel like your journey is similar to ours. You had to go through those struggles to actually find your feet, and you did it with resilience and poise, and not without its challenges in the process.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. For me, South Africans have a very humanistic, social, emotional way of navigating the world, their relationships, and others. Because we're so diverse. I mean, 11 languages and tribes, and you're in it all the time. You're around different ethnicities, language, culture, opinions, political issues that constantly challenges you and changes you. So we're forced to eventually, in my opinion, develop empathy or try to understand each other. And as an immigrant moving, you're looking for that. Your brain is looking to have that input again. And that's really difficult. That's I think a lot of people develop anxiety and depression because you don't receive that, you're not understood. And I still miss that from today, even though I've learned to manage and cope. I still miss that humanistic experience. And the bigger cities offer that a little bit more through multiculturalism, but it's still quite isolated in the winter. So that resilience, you try to uphold it and to do your best to stay strong. I don't think that goes away. Honestly, it is kind of, for me, it's still to an extent work to do that.
Yeah. Does speaking in the mother tongue help in that way, like speaking Afrikaans at home or with your parents or family? Does it make you feel better? Or just, do you guys in Calgary, do you get the South African snacks and stuff? Do you get that?
Yeah. There's a couple of stores here, and I've gone back almost every 3 years as I was able to do that. I was really privileged that I'm able to do that. But that's an interesting question. My first language is Afrikaans. I don't know if yours is English.
English, yes.
Yeah. I think Afrikaans, my theory around this is I think people have an emotional language, one that their mother tongue perhaps, one that some people still think in their mother tongue. That's the case for me, as I relate, my emotions relate best if I try to express them through my own language. I cannot express myself truly express myself and my feelings through English. And so I've learned to really appreciate my language and being able to communicate with my family in it. In that way I understand myself a little bit better, or where I'm at. So yeah, that does help a lot. And that's a beautiful thing about Canada, is that you can still practice your own culture.
Yeah. Freedom of expression.
Yeah.
It's important. It's so important. Because we all have certain traits that we would like to keep and not just diminish as time goes on. Because the other day, when we first came to Canada, actually, we were at the Nando's and we were just having dinner, and I heard this familiar accent. I told my wife, I know this accent. It's similar to where I come from. It's the same dialect. He's using the same slang. He's speaking to the kids the way our parents or we would speak to them. And after we said, okay, let's just let them finish their dinner and then go and say hi. And if you ask, are you from South Africa? And funny enough, The gentleman actually was born in the same town I was born in.
Wow. Wow. It's
With his
amazing.
with his kids, and until today we still keep in contact. It was like 5 years ago. He's up in Sudbury. Beautiful story. He came over with his wife and two kids, and now they've set up their life in Sudbury, which is beautiful. He's living. It's difficult because he says he can't go back to South Africa, obviously because of status, whatever he has. But he's building. He sees his kids growing up the way he did, fishing, being able to express themselves, safe from to be able to run on the road or ride their bikes, play outside, and you take those for granted. You take those things for granted because we grew up like that. We learned to socially interact with our neighbors or our friends on a daily basis. And I feel nowadays it's because everything is so digital, we're losing that aspect. Hence why it's important to reconnect with people sometimes also with familiarity, just to ground you a little bit, to make you aware of where you came from, and and never forget that.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this short break.
Yeah, it is important to, and when I first got here as a teenager, I just wanted to, you want to fit in, you want to be able to just navigate and do well. But as I got older, and moving again here, I realized how much my own culture means to me, to be able just to relate to somebody that speaks the same language or come from the same area or likes the same South Africa, being able to braai again.
Yeah.
Just
the
with
word
other
braai.
people. Yeah. just being able to eat South African food or find somebody that shares that humor and that vibrancy. It's such a small thing, but it enriches your life when you're here, because it can be very isolating. And there's beauty in that.
Speaking of isolation, I know mental health takes a huge toll in that as well. You mentioned that you struggled with mental health, your mental health during your teenage years, and how challenging it was for you. How did you navigate that time of life?
I navigated through survival, fighting or flighting or fleeing. It was really hard. My mom noticed that, I struggled. Like I would say around 15, between 15 and 18, it was the first onset. I would sleep a lot. I had panic attacks. I struggled with anger because your body's just you're trying to communicate, but you don't know how, and you get frustrated. I'm a very extroverted person, and so I needed to be in an environment to be an extrovert. I needed the sensory input that I had of light, longer days, sunnier days, sports, the noises, everything was just polarized.
Right.
Like we know now in science that our brain needs to see light just to be healthy, to have a healthy heart rate, for cognition. If we don't, it creates stress for the brain. But you don't know that at the time, so you go into complete shock and trying to cope. You're in a very terrifying situation. But coming from a medicine family, and I was privileged to eventually see a psychiatrist, and my journey started. But it took me 15 years to find the exact help that I needed to learn emotional literacy. What feelings do I have, and how to process them? Because navigating the system was really hard. Doctors didn't have the answers.
Right.
There were empathetic people, but I saw the need for people needing to know what empathy is, what emotional intelligence is, that it's not just about fixing or diagnosing or giving medicine. Medicine might be like a crutch in the beginning, but until a person, and this is what's true for me, until a person know these are my feelings, this is how I process them, this is what I need to do to be healthy in that moment, I don't think your mental health can get better.
Oh.
Yeah. So it took me a long time to get there. I'm now at a place where I have that literacy, and thankfully through some great therapists and doctors. But if I didn't advocate for myself, kept showing up, kept looking for and asking for help, even though I didn't always know how to or where to go to, I wouldn't be able to be better today. So, and I'm thankful for my mom who was my support as well. But you're very frustrated. I think a lot of people can relate to this. You're very frustrated because there is no blueprint. Nobody tells you how to
Yeah.
immigrate. Nobody tells you how to
No.
immigrate or where to go to, what to do. There are programs now, but the emotional component is not taught enough. So, yeah, I'm sure you had a similar
Yeah.
experience with that.
Yeah, 100%. Coming just with, lock, stock, and barrel, as they say, with your luggage and
Yeah,
no
2
familiar.
suitcases.
Yeah. 2 suitcases landing, not knowing, A from B, how things work. You're taking a chance on life. You're not sure where your, just basic where your meal's gonna come from, things like that.
Mhm.
Because we're so familiar with the ingredients and groceries back home, back in
Yeah.
South Africa, you're still in that mode of finding a familiar product to make you feel comfortable. But as you said, as time goes on, you learn to adapt, you learn to make changes, you learn to sacrifice, and you learn to let go of things that you thought were working for you, and you try and incorporate new ways of life. And
Yeah.
I think that's a very important point to make is we have to let go of what was, because if we don't do that, we're gonna keep. It's just gonna keep us on a string and keep pulling us back. Where I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because it gives you a sense of purpose and grounding in a way that you still have where you come from. But to look forward, you need to let go of that purse string just to say I'm moving forward, and there's nothing gonna hold me back. And I can go back to familiarity if I need it. Should I ever need it, I know it's there. But my main drive now is to move forward and to learn a new way of life. And we had to go through so many emotional challenges. It also affected mentally both of us in a way that we didn't feel loved, or we didn't feel appreciated, because we weren't doing anything to make people feel bad or put them out of their way. But we received such traumatic experiences that we had to make a decision. And thankfully we both were strong enough to say, no, this is not working for us, we need to find a new solution. And thankfully, when we got out of those toxic environments, things started to happen for us.
Yeah.
I found a job. My wife was writing the bar exam at the time. She found a stable place to study, thankfully through a connection of mine who I knew from South Africa. He's living here for the past 20 years. So he knew how things worked. He had the ins and outs, and he introduced us to a lot of people that helped us, along our way. So coming back to your point is, like, a lot of people don't understand those trials and tribulations that you go through emotionally and how physically it's draining on you, because firstly, you don't know where you're going to sleep. What's your, where's healthcare going to be? Where's your, where your groceries are going to come from? Your location, how are you going to get around? You need to find all those things, navigate it. But you look back in hindsight, and it's a beautiful thing, because I always said, now I always looked at the challenging parts as a bad thing. Change my perspective now to look at it as learnings, and there's beautiful things within there that get you to your goal, or to get you to where you want to be. Because I think if you get to where you want to be quickly, you kind of like stay stagnant, and it becomes a little boring.
Mhm.
Not sure
Yeah.
if that resonates with you, or if you feel the same way.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. Immigrating is a very humbling experience. If you do it the healthy way, like you said, to get better and to move forward, it's very humbling. You have to humble yourself. You have to let go of of any sort of being proud, because you're asking for help. In a way, you're very desperate, because there's no way. You don't know where you're going. You don't know if what you're doing is right. It's very humbling. And secondly, you have to let go at some point. In the beginning, I think a lot of people, you try to control the outcome and you overthink, am I doing it the right way? Do we have the best options? But at some point, you have to trust, go to others again, be humble, be vulnerable, ask for their opinion, what they've gone through. You kind of sometimes in the beginning grasp onto any help you can, because you
Oh
don't
yeah.
know, right?
Yeah.
Um, but I think also like letting go of a certain expectation of things need to be a certain way, or even the expectation of, but this made me so much happier in South Africa, or when we did it that way, or things were like this, I was so much happier. Living in the past, it will not let you settle into a new place.
Yeah.
Um,
I heard
and
something
that,
interesting the other day. Somebody, I think it was an Instagram post or something. I agree and disagree with what was said, and all was said was you can't keep dwelling on the past. You have to just keep moving forward.
Mhm.
I agree. Fair enough. For me, knowing that what has happened allows you to stay grounded, because you don't want
Yeah.
to make the same mistakes again. So
Yeah.
it's not about forgetting the past. Yes, the past is gone. There's nothing you can do about it, but there's learnings that you can take from it into everyday life. Hence why
Mhm.
it's important to remember those days so that you can keep moving forward. It's easy just
Yeah.
to shut it out and forget about it, but the universe works in such a beautiful way that it will come back and present
Mhm.
itself, because it's not being dealt with. You know,
Yeah.
doesn't it? I learned something when I was in hospital, when they teach you about solving the problem at source. Because when you don't, and you keep trying to look for avenues to try and make it work, you start lying, you start looking at
Mhm.
blaming others. It just keeps going in an infinity loop, and it's just going to keep going on and on and on. However, if you're honestly and open to resolving that problem there and there, it stops there. It never goes forward. Hence why a lot of my depression, anxiety came from not dealing with the issues at hand up front, openly and honestly. I just put plasters over it, and it just kept coming back and opening, reopening, and the wound just kept getting worse and worse and worse,
Mhm.
until it got to a stage where I had to be institutionalized to figure it out.
Yeah.
So there's silver linings, and there's beautiful things that come with those journeys, and you have to be open and honest about yourself. And
Mhm.
sometimes we have to also look within ourselves and where we went wrong as well, because it's also sometimes a two-way interaction. Perhaps I said something, perhaps I did something that it didn't align with who you are or what you agreed upon, and sure, but tell me. Hence I feel in Canada that passive aggressiveness comes across, where they don't
Mhm.
really speak their mind, where us South Africans, we speak it up front and we deal
Yeah.
with the core issue there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. I was also institutionalized more than once in my 15 years, exactly because of that. There's so much triggers. Your brain is so overwhelmed with all this new processing and pressures of needing to cope in this society that we've set up, you know? to perform, to make money, to do all this, and you're so overwhelmed that you can't move forward. And so I was in the hospital many times, and it took me many years to figure out this is where I'm still avoiding addressing issues in myself. This is where I'm still getting stuck with certain patterns of thinking. These are still things that I suppress. Again, like here's a curriculum, this is a book, this is exactly how you need to deal with mental health. It's not linear. It's such a journey, and I've just learned to take what the hospital told me, some doctors told me, this is what I've learned through journaling or whatever it is. Um, I've I've also felt that way, that maybe I did something wrong, but you can't really judge yourself because you're just trying to survive. You're trying to cope with a completely different world. Everything you knew, all your safety people or safety nets are away, and you're here, and you do have to evolve and become a new person while still keeping good memories and good things about the past and what you've learned. But it's either that or you go back or stay on the fence.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of compassion that I've learned to have for myself constantly, still today.
That's good.
Because the world, healing doesn't stop. The world will always expect more of us, especially, the pace increasing, and there's toxic stress. It will tell you what to think, will tell you what to do. You have to decide, no, I'm going to be in the present moment. I know whatever grounds you need to do that. But it's really up to you. The world's not going to give you that space all the time.
Nah.
That's what's hard. It's an everyday thing.
Yeah, and I think that the longevity part is the important part. You have to stay in the game for a long period of time to actually see those results.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if you like me, but patience wasn't a thing for me.
Yeah.
I lacked patience, and I had to learn to sit with emotions, sit with my traumas, sit with my inner self for a very long time, because there was no quick fix for what I was going through. I thought it would just be overnight and I'll be okay, but it didn't work out that way. Yes, certain times of my life, overnight fixes helped, but I wasn't dealing with the root cause of my problems. And nowadays I incorporate Western medicine with holistic approaches, which works for me. Hence I say everybody is different. You got to find what works for you. But it's a journey. You have to sit with it, understand it, and be comfortable with it. Because it's not a bad thing to learn about yourself, good parts and the bad parts. It makes you who you are.
Yeah, the world doesn't teach you to celebrate that part of you, or to be vulnerable. We don't. There's still a lot of stigma, and we don't make enough space for just conversations like this. In my opinion, I wouldn't say it's normalized. Maybe with the digital evolution, it's getting better, but we're not quite there yet for everybody to understand the experiences we have. But yeah, just being okay with sitting with yourself. And yeah, I can relate. At some point I had to realize I can't run anymore. I need to, there's immigration itself is a traumatic event, but it can trigger other traumas before that you didn't know, like your childhood trauma, or, you have to heal that inner child. It will force you to go deep, especially if I've been in therapy for almost 8 years. And there were 4 years where I were consistent. So at some point it's going to address everything, and you have to be open for that.
Yeah.
To truly heal and get where you want to go, because there's going to be something that's going to hold you back, or a negative thought that's going to keep you going back.
Given that your journey, and I think you've built up some form of self-resilience today to navigate anything that comes up.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say there's not much that I fear, that I worry about anymore. I've been able to, through empathetic people and the some and privilege of therapy, I've built enough to have that self-confidence again. But it made me a new, like, I'm not the same person I was when I came here. I'm not the
Right.
same person when I got to Calgary. And sometimes it feels like I evolve almost every month when I work on myself, when I allow to learn, and to not stay stuck, or when I feel like I'm distracting myself from a really hard feeling. I do notice, okay, but now we're stuck again. Why are we avoiding this? Let's think about it. Um, yeah.
No, amazing, and kudos for you for actually, sticking with it and working through it as well. It's not very. I know it's not very easy, but you stuck with it, and you're still here today to share your story.
Yeah, no, thank you. If you haven't gone through it as well, I wouldn't be able to share it with you. So,
Yeah, it's important to have this kind of a conversation to open up more dialogue, more discussion,
mhm.
so that the next generation or even the current generation is still feels okay to share, or feels okay that what they're going through is normal. It's not something that is ostracizing in a way, because I feel like you said, a lot of society still feels it as a sees it as a stigmatization of
Mhm.
mental health. Hence, we need
Oh,
to have this
definitely.
kind of these discussions, and it's not just one society. I think most
Oh, yeah.
aren't aware or emotionally available to accept that when something is not right, we we have to look at it a little bit more calmly and then empathically,
Mhm.
and not judge too quickly on front end, because there's always somebody, and somebody's journey is always different to yours, and they're going through something. You just can't judge it on face value unless you spend time with the person and you know their story. Then
Yeah.
you can make your own judgment.
Yeah, I think I've judged people and I've judged circumstances that, we're just human and we make
Hmm.
mistakes, but as you grow, you learn that a lot of, and I've done this as well, in order to cope in an environment, you kind of mask exactly what you're feeling just to like get on with it,
Hmm.
because that's what we're taught. Get on with it. Get on with the day. Get on with the work. So you learn to do that, and I learned to do that when I got here at 15, but at some point you realize it kind of isolates you. You don't have a voice anymore. You have to work through it to really find authenticity, to because that's happiness, being able to express yourself, being comfortable. To get there, you have to take off the mask, even if other people wear it. But
Hmm.
there's things I do every day, most of the day. Some days it's harder than others for me to stay healthy. Um,
Yeah.
I'm sure you do as well. Just things that work for your balance and your healing.
Yeah. What are some of the things that help you along the way?
Um, well, I still work with a therapist, sometimes on and off, but I will most likely for a while. I find there's a lot of, it's not for everyone, but there's a lot of benefit for me to speak to someone, to be able to get my thoughts out. Um, I struggle with negative. I've struggled with negative thinking. It's better now, but especially when I got here, so I have to work on getting those negative thoughts on paper, and challenging them. So cognitive behavioral therapy, you can through homework you can do challenge your thinking. Basically, if an environment triggers you, like moving, uh, or just something that happens in your day, you write it down, and then
Oh
I
yeah.
write down, the thought I have, um, the intensity of the emotion associated to that, and then you dissect that sentence basically. And um, it took me about 4 years to practice that, and with practice, just sitting with your writing, you get to a point where you establish a new sentence, basically a belief system of
what that event meant.
yeah, and making that a positive way and a kinder way of speaking to yourself.
So I did a similar call. I'm not sure if it's the same thing, but it sounds like the same thing. It's trauma logging,
Yes.
where if something happened to you, you kind of write down the incident, what phase of that dimension, where you are, the emotion that you felt, and what could you do to make you feel at ease with that. So it's just they're putting it there, taking that experience out of your body and putting it onto paper.
Yeah.
Helps quite a lot.
Exactly. I know. Yeah, very similar to what I do. But and connection of that, I find sometimes that's hard to do. Like you said, getting out of your body, getting out of that thinking. So connecting it to nature, going into nature and doing it, or connecting it to, for me, it's physical activity. I would need to play sports or go for a run, or even just a walk.
Yeah.
Just forcing your brain to do something else than being stuck in this negative thought helps me a lot. And then there's like the daily things, if it's medication, sleeping, eating. And some days it's mental health. Some days it's harder. Not as much for me anymore, like as in the past with depression, but there are days where you feel a little bit slower. You feel that your capacity is not as big as it was yesterday, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Again, it's more, the difficulty comes, we live in a society that doesn't allow for a way of life like that, not in the Western society. And so you're upstream every day with that. So you learn to just surround yourself with loving people, or space or quietness. That really helps me. And then my faith is the center of my stability. Just my belief in God and Christianity. Simple scripts, verses that I read, like there's a Bible verse that do not worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow brings its own worries.
Yeah.
So that lets me go of the illusion that I have any sort of control of tomorrow, or I have control over right now, and that is enough. So yeah.
That's amazing. That keeps you grounded in a way that you are able to keep going the next day, because not every day is not the same. You will go through your ups and downs, and that's okay.
Yeah. It's part of the ride.
It's like a roller coaster.
Yeah. And that's okay. I think there's sometimes negative connotation to a roller coaster, but that's life. It's learning how to go with it while staying, having a center, and peace with yourself and compassion for yourself.
Yeah. I know we didn't touch too much on this, but when you said you're an educator, what resonated you towards teaching, and what gives you that sense of purpose?
Yeah. So after I got to Calgary and worked as a flight attendant, because I came here, I wanted to mention this earlier, and then I'll get to your question. At around 20, I realized Newfoundland was too small. I needed to see the Canada that I was immigrating to, that we were coming to, not, the smaller island. So I kind of needed to escape, I guess, at 20. And I applied to just be a flight attendant. And I applied to different cities, bigger cities. And I said, whoever accepts, I'm going to go. And so I went to Calgary. I didn't have a citizenship yet, Canadian citizenship, but I started to work up north, which was really good. It pushed me to see the country. And then after I did that, I had the opportunity to work in a refugee community. So people that came here and they can't go back. And so there I volunteered, and I worked with children, and moms and kids, and I taught English a little bit. And so there I realized I liked working with kids. And then I went to school for it. But I went to school for it, and I started working in early development. I started working with children with disabilities, both, Canadian-born kids, but also children with who are displaced, who just got here, language barrier, disabilities.
Yeah.
And it was very humbling, like seeing children with severe disabilities needing help and their resilience every day to learn and to grow and to just develop their physical disability. It made me feel kind of seen in a way.
Okay.
It made me feel like I wasn't alone, and that people come. It's also humbling. People come
Yeah.
from more complex backgrounds, and there was some sort of purpose that I'm able to bring the little bit that I went through to service, to help. And it's wonderful to see what children learn. And all I needed to do is to be there for them, to be consistent, to be real, and to listen to them. It just brings such an honor every day to be able to do that. You learn so much from them, and it made me realize by attending to my own emotional needs, my issues, my mental health, just starting to heal that and having
Right.
awareness, I can bring back to others and open that up for them. So it just came full circle, and I'm really thankful that I have that as a job. So
It's so funny. It's like our stories are intertwined together. Because when I was at that point, I seeked out, because I coach soccer, and next to our complex there was a club team that was looking for coaches, and that really helped me. Like you said, your kids helped, teaching helped you, coaching kids helped me find myself again.
That's great. Yeah,
because your act of service was not just for you, it was also imparting your knowledge excuse me, onto the kids that actually accept that, and in that way you kept your cup full, by also healing at the same time, not knowing it. You just did something that you love doing again, and momentum started gathering from there, or momentum started to pick up from there, where you start your own journey. But just by helping others, you start helping yourself and keeping your cup, or start filling your cup.
Yeah, just by showing up for yourself every day with your own struggle or whatever that is. Sometimes that means just having your medication. Just by showing up for yourself, you can show up for others, and that's a beautiful thing about immigration is we end up being very alone when we get here, but we're able to connect on a very deeper human level.
Yeah.
Which is, it's beautiful.
Think about it. In South Africa, how often would you just go up to somebody and try and initiate a conversation?
Yeah.
I don't, unless you're in your own familiar surroundings and your people. I mean, we've never done it. We've never just gone up to neighbors or, maybe next door. But as you grew older, we just never seeked out those kind of connections, because we felt, we have family, we have our, grounding, we have people who we grew up with, and that we've got our circle, and that's okay. And when you immigrate, you all of that breaks away.
Oh yeah, you have to socialize. You have to break out of your
network
was comfortable. Yeah. Because you're already kind of exposed. You are vulnerable, so you might as well
tread the water again.
And learn, from what I've seen, force yourself to have some sort of empathy or try to understand other people. Or be open to it.
It's a wonderful journey, immigration, or just even
learning. Maybe not in
to
the
live
beginning.
We can say that now. Just going back on reflections and advice. Looking back, what would you give your 15-year-old self advice? What would you tell that little girl?
I'm just gonna go to that real quick because I don't want to miss anything here.
Cool.
Was that 17?
Yeah.
Here we go. Um, I would tell my 15-year-old self that it's going to be really hard. It's probably going to be the hardest thing, most difficult process you're going to go through in your life, at least for that time. You don't really know how long it's going to last. It's going to be confusing, very painful in an emotional way. But you will evolve if you're open to it. And you can become somebody that's very strong and grounded with a lot of knowledge, which will help you advance in whatever you do one day. And I tell her that there's not always going to be answers. There's not always going to be, there might not be support in the way you want it. What mattered the most was being able to find out what's healthy for me. And that you're not alone. But yes, it will feel alone in that moment.
Yeah.
But be open to the input of others and be thankful for those small things because they might mean the most. Yeah. Yeah.
That's beautiful. I think she'd appreciate that advice. She might not accept it at 15, but
not as a teenager.
I think at say 15 years down the line, she'll be okay. Yeah, that made a lot of sense. I think I wouldn't have accepted it back when I was 15. I would have probably told you, you're crazy. That at 15, at the age of 40, you'll be living or at the age of 35, moving to another country. Because it's always been a dream of mine to live abroad and experience the world. And if you told me that at 35 you'd be embarking on that journey, I would have thought you were crazy. But somehow, somewhere, that drive was always there. Just never knew how to navigate it or get there. But the universe provides when you need it the most.
What would you tell yourself, or what would you hope to have known, maybe?
For my 15-year-old self, I would have said, you are not alone and you will be okay.
Yeah.
Because I did feel alone. I did feel I was not okay. And you're going to achieve great things. You are going to be able to connect with people on a deeper level that you've always have been doing. You've always been a helper, and that's going to be your life purpose.
That's awesome. Yeah. That this moment is going to be bigger than what you're feeling. And I guess welcoming that overwhelmingness, because it's going to teach you something. Yeah.
And for new immigrants or fairly new immigrants, what advice would you part ways with to help them feel that they're on the journey of good things?
Yeah. I think I often felt like I was watching my life unfold from the outside, which makes you want to plan and you overthink the little things, trying to figure out the future, which is a very real thing. But at some point, you have to first just accept where you are, accept that the whole plan that you had in your head can change. You have to be, like we said earlier, be open to just being vulnerable to that moment, to people maybe showing you or sharing something with you that might help you, or just being willing to change. But that comes with time, and again, it's such a personal journey. But at some point, you have to decide. You have to. I had to face the fact that I can't go back. Like when I was 18, I went back and I realized I can't live here anymore.
Yeah.
So how can I make Canada work for me? And it's a decision you have to decide. I'd say that's after accepting where you are and starting to process your emotions. That will be the second thing, is just to decide. Because when you decide, you're able to start building and laying a foundation. But you can feel very broken and lost. And I would say you're not. You are most likely starting to grow and evolve. And you're struggling right now, and that's completely acceptable. You don't have to be where the person next to you is, because you don't know where they are emotionally. The emotional part is so invisible, but the emotional growth is so invisible, but it's very important. And so acknowledge that. And that just because you're lost doesn't mean that your potential is. You can become anything here in Canada if you're willing to start that process of growing.
Yeah.
And you don't have to give in to the pressures of I think the Western world, and to succeed, to have the successful, like, for example, just to become this entrepreneur and feel like you have to be so successful in a worldly way. By just growing and becoming a person of some wisdom and knowledge, you're able to give back so much more. But it's okay to be confused. And also with that decision of coming, accepting the fact that it's a loss. You've lost what you've known to be home or what was familiar, but you haven't lost those memories, and you'll be able to add to them.
Yes, that's important. You're going to be adding to those memories. You won't be losing any memories. That's for sure.
I think that's the little advice I have. Yeah.
Cool. Such a heartfelt conversation. Thank you so much for joining us today, Carlin. I truly appreciate your time and sharing your story with us, sharing your journey, your vulnerabilities, your wins, everything. It's refreshing to speak to another South African who has embarked on a similar journey to us. I've learned a lot, so thank you. And I think I've made a new connection now in Calgary. Every time you come and visit, or anytime you come and visit us, please come in. Please let me know. And thank you for taking the time out for tuning in. Thank you so much for tuning in today's episode, everyone. Carlin's story is such a reminder that even when life throws big changes our way, we can find strength, growth, and even maybe find a little peace along the journey. If a story resonated with you, don't forget to share this episode with someone who might need to hear it, and always take care of yourself. And thank you so much, guys. And until the next one, everybody, stay zen. Thank you.